Namaste everyone. Welcome to our 23rd day of the World Interfaith Festival. Today our theme is human rights. So before showing a video clip, there's a movement happened at the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a milestone document in the history of human rights, drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on 10th December 1948. General Assembly Resolution 217A as a common standard of achievements for all people and all nations. It sets out for the first time fundamental human rights to be universally protected, and it has been translated into over 500 languages. The UDHR is widely recognized as having inspired and paved by the way for the adoption of more than 70 human rights treaties applied today on a permanent basis at global and regional levels. Even though we have this Universal Declaration of Human Rights for a long time at the United Nations, still very hard to implement human rights. So we need a discussion on this, and we have to educate people. Here I like to invite one of my friend, Reverend Massimo Parino, to say a few words. Reverend Massimo Parino.
As any problem, thank you very much to all the attendees this morning to this important, very important topic. And I would love to start with a short quote from the philosopher L. Ron Hubbard regarding the human rights that said, "The building block of the world is the individual. Only to some small extent, does the individual have any rights or justice. Therefore, by defending the individual or group against injustice and oppression, by advancing the cause of human rights, great progress can be made towards the humanitarian objective. And you can help. It is easier than it looks." It's very interesting that I think that the United Nations has the most powerful weapon in his hand to help to improve and advance our civilization, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And my opinion, my very humble opinion, is that if the human rights, the 30th article, will be taught in schools since the beginning, to educate our children to the human rights, we will have a new generations that are completely respectful. And even though we cannot talk 100%, all the people will be good, but however, we can create an educate generation that knows what are the human rights and be respectful each other. That is I think the most important thing. Unfortunately, human rights are not taught in schools, and that is a problem.
Yeah. So a lot of time I feel, because we want to promote human rights, and certain times we have difficulty to promote because of the political reasons or the cultural reasons or the community influences, and we stuck for certain level. And without the friends and colleagues from our community, we cannot do anything. We are a social being. So how to balance? Because we want to promote it, but we have limitations. We actually stuck. Even though we are NGOs, because we don't have full capacity to run everything, because the government is controlling all the laws, rules, and regulations, and some people don't like certain things in the bylaws. Yeah. Very, very hard to bring it, but we have to promote it. Here I am going to show a wonderful video given by Reverend Massimo Perino.
Human rights is, geez, that's a good question.
Human rights. Well, that's tough. Wow.
I don't even know how to give that a definition.
I would probably have to do a little bit of homework or something.
Any right that I think just as a normal, human,
The rights that humans have.
Oh, that's a very large debate.
Mezcla
Tú le puedes preguntar a 20 personas y te van a dar 20 diferentes opiniones.
Non saprei, una domanda complicatissima.
We just take it for granted that they're there, but we don't even consider what they are.
Human rights are the rights you have simply because you're human. It's how you instinctively expect and deserve to be treated as a person, like the right to live freely, to speak your mind, and to be treated as an equal. There are many kinds of rights. Most apply to a certain group. But human rights are the only ones that apply to absolutely everyone, everywhere. That means kids, old people, poor people, basketball players, garbage men, rappers, teachers, Africans, Indians, Albanians, Christians, Muslims, Kabbalists, atheists, your mom, your dad, your next door neighbor, and you all have the exact same human rights. In other words, they're universal. But the question remains, what are they?
Name the human rights?
What the human rights are?
The right to live,
equality between all peoples.
right to religion, the right to...
is there supposed to be a list somewhere I should be aware of?
According to the United Nations, there are a total of 30 human rights, which are usually lumped together and called simply human rights. They're all listed out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the world's most widely accepted document on the subject. But it was a long time in coming. At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, well, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. They documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them, and America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded. But the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. And all told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers, free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent, who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
this is the place we have to stop it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question. Why your organization thought this should be promoted? And how was the video recorded? How much time it took? We can give us a little background about the video. That's also good.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't get.
Why your organization made this video? What was the motivation? Number one. And what are the movement to make this video? I know some people especially put effort to make this video, and how long it took, those things. A little background, good to know that.
There is a two organization in the world. There is the Foundation Youth for Human Rights, and there is a foundation, and the president of this foundation is Mary Shuttleworth, and she and her son, they work, for years to build up this video, and they record, and they are traveling every single year in many parts of the world to promote the human rights. And this foundation actually is sister with another foundation, which is the Human Rights program. Basically, the Youth for Human Rights is the main foundation that promoted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And they have two programs, which are three programs that we can put in the chat also for everybody to take a look. And these programs are, one is for youth, so where the 30 articles were described with just one sentence. So any child can understand immediately what are the article, the human rights. And then there is the full declaration for, obviously, for adolescent, teens, high school, and so forth. This program basically is just how to inform, first of all, the people, because we saw during the video that the greatest majority of the people interviewed, they don't know what the human rights are. So how you can apply something that you don't know?
Right.
Even though it's natural in the behavior of the good people to act in that way. However, people don't know what the human rights are, so it should be taught in school. And this foundation, the Youth for Human Rights Foundation, developed a full curriculum, and is a package that can be ordered free of charge by anyone in 17 languages. And I will put, let me put also the link in the chat so anybody can take a look at you. You can put in the, let me see here, chat. So it's a Youth for Human Rights.org. Hopefully it's correct. Yes. And the other one is humanrights.com. So anybody can go in these websites, order for free the curriculum, which is a box that contain this video, part of this the video that we just saw, including a lesson plan for all the 30 articles that can be taught in schools, churches, association, and is, as I said, are completely free of charge. So it's a great tools, and that can be used by anybody.
Great. So these are the websites: youthforhumanrights.org or humanrights.com. Two websites you can get more information, and in 17 languages. So you don't have to worry about you don't know the language of English. So French, Spanish, Arabic, like different things. So we'll continue for the next part of the. I want to ask Keith Lowenstein. I saw Keith here. Are you there?
I am here. Yes, good
How are
morning.
you, Keith?
I am good. I am good.
Okay. So we will continue this video. Let me see.
Can you tell which of these children was not born free? Can you tell which of these children was not born equal? Can you tell which of these children does not deserve to be treated with dignity? We can't either. Human right number one. We are all born free and equal. What are human rights? Find out.
Joe. Steve. Aaron.
It greeted you at birth. It's with you when you win, when you lose, when you pick yourself up again. In every moment, you can feel it. Life. Human right number three, the right to life. What are human rights? Find out.
Here we are at the slavery exhibit. The slaves were kidnapped from their homes.
Women and children are being smuggled.
They worked all day long for no pay.
Children forced into slave labor.
Are there any questions?
Does this still happen today?
They asked me for my money. I said no.
All my friends ran home because they were scared he might punch them too.
I was screaming, but he just wouldn't stop.
He said I wasn't listening. I didn't think he'd get so mad.
Welcome to my country. I have rights! Rights? Ready? 1, 2. Спасибо.
Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? find out.
Yo, this is a story about human rights. For those that don't know, you need to. Yo, a starving artist, but his lyrics so worldwide. His friend and manager was a snake in disguise, and he was bitten. His song sold without a permission. Saw his record on the shelf, the snake had stolen his vision. But knowing his rights, he could protect himself. Fair treatment by fair courts, he got the law to help. The other dude just sunk weak, looked like a punk, could hardly open his mouth and speak, popping that jump. You better get up, stand up. If you've been done wrong, you better stand up for your rights like that Marley song. Get yourself represented, lawfully defended. Know your human rights, don't ever surrender. No, don't ever surrender. Yeah. Let's go.
Anybody out there? God, you just tell me what I did, please. God, just talk to somebody. Let me go.
Next case, the People versus Martin White. Mr. White has been charged with... Guilty. Next case.
But Your Honor, you haven't heard the charges yet.
Guilty. Next case. Guilty. 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 Hey, Miss Griffin. Guilty. Next case.
I wouldn't have to raise my voice if you just give it back and stop being like a criminal.
I don't have your cell phone.
What are you offering? Is this a beach? Okay. You left us in the bathroom.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Read it. Read it. Read it. Read it. Read it. Read it. Read it. Read it.
Yeah, I think you dropped this.
Where would I go if the world had no limits? If I could defy all boundaries? If all roads were open to me? If I could fly? If I were free to move?
I'm Chinese.
I am Russian.
I am East African.
I'm Canadian.
I am Filipino.
I am Irish.
I am Bulgarian.
Korean.
I am American.
I am Brazilian.
Italian.
Mexican.
I'm British.
Swedish.
French.
I'm Israeli.
Mongolian. I'm South African.
Japanese.
We are mankind.
She came up and kissed me one day.
Because I was like 20 years old. It's not like something you talk about marriage all the time. I think he liked me first.
We met in a grocery store. I asked for her number. She wouldn't give me her number.
I said I have to ask you something. And I kneeled down. And
She was laughing and trembling.
He proposed to me on my birthday.
and she said, yes. Are you sure?
Sorry.
believe in nature.
I believe in the spirit.
I believe in trust. Beauty.
I believe in my mom. Strawberry ice cream.
Fortune cookies.
Chocolate. I believe in the tooth fairy.
Being honest with yourself.
I believe in Santa Claus. Aliens, of course.
I believe what I want to believe.
I believe in myself.
I believe in myself. I believe in peace. I have something to say.
There's a mistake. Iron more than this.
Seems okay to me, kid. Maybe you should check your math. Hey there. Maybe you should check yours.
According to estimates, over 1 billion people live in appalling levels of poverty. Denied even basic standards of food, water. Nearly half of the world's population earns less than.
So, welcome to my country, welcome to my school, blah, blah, blah. Ready for your first day in the wicked castle of doom? I mean, like, seriously, I don't know how they can put us through this, like, every single day. How many schools do you have in your village? None.
Get that movie of mine. Dude. This is pirated.
So, when I start making movies, people ripping me off.
I wouldn't rip you off, man.
Prove it.
The world I see is fair and free, where people can travel wherever they please, and children can eat and have shoes on their feet, and not be afraid when they walk on the street. It's not like there has to be rainbows and bunnies, or streets full of people all dancing like dummies, but freedom to live, to learn, and to play, to just be yourself and think your own way. The road I see may sound crazy to you, but hopefully, someday, you'll see it too.
Good morning. I'm here to read you your rights.
My what?
We are all free and equal. Don't discriminate. You have the right to life, and nobody can take these rights and freedoms away from you.
Why are you doing this?
You have a right to know.
We're all born free and equal.
Don't discriminate.
These are your human rights. There are 30 of them. They belong to you. You don't have to buy them, or apply for them, or ask permission to have them. They're just yours. No matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, or anything else. It's just that simple. Now, some people may try to ignore your rights, or violate them, or pretend they don't exist. But they can't change the fact that they are yours. Human right number 30. No one can take away your human rights. What are human rights? Find out.
That's a beautiful clip. I watched so many times. Let me open up the floor. Pete is here. Reverend Chris, can you open your video? MSG, are you able to open your video? Great. Okay, we'll keep it open for discussion. Unmute yourself. You can.
Guruji, I have a couple slides that I could show that talk about human rights in the context of peace education.
Sure. I just made you as a co-host.
Good timing here. Yeah, I need to share content if you can let me do that.
Reverend Grace, do you have any question or comments?
Not at this time. I'm real busy doing something. I'll be back. I can be later. Okay.
You
Sorry.
have your human rights. Enjoy yourself. Ramesh.
Peter, are you ready?
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Okay. All right, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
All right, I just pulled together a few slides to tell a little bit of a story, and it's kind of appropriate that we tell this story today because we're in the middle of Black History Month, And 1 week, in a week, we're going to be in Women's History Month. So there's a particular story that is connected with human rights and is connected with peace education and Black History Month and Women's History Month. So let me take us through it real quick. It starts with this woman, Claudette Colvin, who is a famous woman, an iconic figure in the civil rights movement here in the United States. She was arrested on the bus a week before Rosa Parks on March 2nd. A week from today will be the 67th anniversary of that, March 2nd, 1955. Now, she's credited because when she was arrested on the bus for not giving her seat up, it really woke up the civil rights movement and created a rally around her case, because they recognized her case could go up to the Supreme Court and change the law, because indeed the laws of Alabama at the time were not consistent with the laws, the federal laws of the United States, specifically around the rights of Black people. So she's credited with accelerating the change in the plight of colored. Now, what does that mean? The very first time I met Claudette Colvin, I was asked to speak it and say a couple words. So I saw this in that book, and I said, you know, I better, it's interesting territory, accelerating a change. So I did a search. Plight of colored people, 1955. And what came up was all the lynchings in the United States, obviously gross human rights violations for our part here in the United States. Between the end of the Civil War in 1865 and 1955, those 90 years, there were 4,000 lynchings in the United States. And they continued on at a rate of about 70 per year into the 60s, well into the 60s, I think 67. So Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks grew up in this area right here. So they were no strangers to any of these actions and the environment that was being propagated. When I saw this, I had an epiphany that you could say the plight of colored people in 1955 could be measured in deaths per day. Now, eventually, that number came down, and as it came down, you know, that's obviously a good thing. People who died are represented underneath the curve here. If she accelerated the change, what she did was she really pushed this curve to the left. And what that results in is a number of people who are no longer beneath the curve, who are above the curve. So at this event honoring Claudette Colvin, now going back 5 or 6 years, I said that our guest of honor here today literally saved lives. But her story is a little bit deeper than that, because how did she become aware of her rights that allowed her to not give up her seat that day on the bus? She was taught her rights by, among others, Miss Geraldine Nesbitt, who was one of her teachers. And we keep in mind that back in 1955, as we're celebrating Black History Month today, back in 1955, it was Negro History Week. And Miss Geraldine Nesbitt and others were real inspirations, enlightening and informing the students, teaching them about their rights. And by extension, we can say human rights, right? Because that's today's topic. So if we say that Claudette Colvin literally saved lives, we can by extension say that Miss Geraldine Nesbitt, by empowering Claudette and her class, literally saved lives. And what we can point to is the content of those teachings. So the content that made Claudette and her classmates aware that she didn't legally have to get up from that seat that day that the bus driver was demanding it, that a woman in the front of the bus was looking at her and saying, "Girl, you got to get up," that a police officer came on the bus and berated her and dragged her off the bus, all the while she was saying, "It's my constitutional right." So this content of teaching would fall under the umbrella of, without fully defining, what we're going to call peace education. Now, I'm going to pivot this talk right now away from this Black History Month important historical figure of Claudette Colvin, 1 week before the anniversary, and shift gears to the African Union. Now, 1.3 billion people, 55 countries. They have a 50-year plan. And in that 50-year plan, there are 7 beautiful aspirations, the 4th of which calls for a peaceful and secure Africa. The words under that on the bottom here specifically say, a culture of peace and tolerance shall be nurtured in Africa's children and youth through peace education. So what does that mean? So we've gone out, and Project Peace Lights was formed to help the African Union accelerate the timeline of achieving and realizing peace education. And among other things, we're going to be working towards having 3 curriculum development working group meetings that will help establish a curriculum. Of course, that needs input from a lot of people. And I've been challenged on this, saying, it's great that you want to, accelerate peace education, but what does it really mean? What's peace education? It could mean anything. It's an ill-defined term. And in reality, it is an ill-defined term. But here's what we do know about peace education. First of all, I threw this slide in because I love this slide. Peace education is more than just educating on documents and laws and so on. It's also educating on our hearts. And there's a lot of facets to yoga. There's a lot of facets to peace education. And we're going to explore those. But what I tell people is, when you look at peace education, one thing we do know is that it's not 100 topics. It's something like a dozen topics or 20 topics, something that we can get our arms around and a motivated working group can get their arms around. Things like media influences on peace, inner peace, customs, cultures, religions, peace documents, etc. Defining terms of what we're talking about is always important. So the other thing, and I'm going to bring it right back to our human rights discussion in today's interfaith activities, no matter what the topics are determined to be by the Africans for their own purposes, and I think it'll be a foundation for the rest of the world, but whatever those topics are, we know that all those topics for peace education sit on a foundation of human rights. So we have this small, finite number of topics that will be contributed to by the people of Africa, by all the ethnic groups. The working group will develop a curriculum, and human rights will be an integral part of that curriculum. Now, Project Peace Lights is partnered with Youth for Human Rights International that Massimo spoke about, that has, as you've seen in the videos, this great content around peace education and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Currently in over 100 countries in 24 languages. So there's a great basis and starting point for the African Union to leverage their human rights proliferation of education throughout all the people in all of the countries. We also know that a curriculum cannot be driven down into tribes in Africa. That was words from His Excellency Adonia Ayabare from the African Union to the United Nations. So what we've taken on is this outreach program of getting the inputs. And I'm sure that human rights is going to be mentioned over and over again by all the ethnic groups that we visit throughout Africa as an important part of what will eventually be the peace education curriculum. This is an old slide. We're currently in 30 countries right now working towards these goals. And the goal is to achieve peace education about a decade before it would have otherwise been reached. And with that carries, again, all of these human rights elements with it. Project Peace Lights, and that's it. That's my share for today. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Peter.
Great. Okay, I'm going to open our group. Let's see. Those who are in the meeting, please keep your video on. Dr. Remy Alapo, Jasvi Bhatia, Rameshji, please keep your video on. Yes, Reverend Chris, you like to share anything today?
Caught me at a bad time, but I did want. I'm very grateful to listen as much as I can today. I'm not prepared to do too much, but it's just that world unity is coming, and I'm so grateful and happy.
I am happy that you are happy.
Guru, I would love to underline.
Okay. Namaste.
See, we have rights to be happy.
Yeah.
Forget about all the other human rights. That's very important. Majority of the people are not happy, so they have some issues in their mind. So they bring their problems on other people's head. That's a basic thing. Everybody look about how my life is comfortable. I won't care how other people are going through. I move around the world, interact with the people. From every single being, I understood what they can get out of it. That's the number one thing. They won't think what we can do for the community. That should be the first. When we work for others, there's a meaning for our life. These many years, they created these human rights, 30 points, still very hard to implement. Because when people are sleeping, easy to wake them up. When they are pretend to sleep, very hard to wake them up. I had a great master, that is Swami Bhuvaji Maharaj. Even if his last days in New York City, he do things for people. You won't think I am 123, I had to sit at home or just lie down, everybody come and serve. I never saw that. Whatever he can do, he will do. That's the way we're supposed to grow up. When I see how some of the leaders serve the community, is so pathetic. Doesn't matter which country or which culture. So good to have a wonderful attire as a religious leader, a political leader, to show for a function. Fine. Don't put that in every single day in a pedestal. That's not a correct way. If we really actually love people, we won't go act like that. Sometimes I go to some events, they bring very wealthy attire or very fancy or chairs to sit. And I said, no, just bring a normal chair. That's enough. Sometimes in front of all the VIPs, I sit on the floor and show. This is the way we're supposed to be. We grew up in Kerala. I never saw any of the masters sitting on the throne. Never. But I go different parts of India, you see gold chair, silver chair, 5 metal chair to talk about spirituality. It's really pathetic to see this one. Anyway, so let us see how other people want to share today. I'm going to make a record for each person. Let me see, I make the 1 minute, give me a second. Okay, that's good. Spotlight, Ramesh here, Bhatyaji is here. Okay, I'll let you to speak. Yes, Maximo, you want to start with it?
I want to underline one point. I think that is the most important thing. People, any person that is tired for injustice, that are tired for intolerance, that are tired for racism, that are tired for the violence that we see every day in our streets, if they are tired of this one, they can do something. And I mean, this program, the Youth for Human Rights, you can go online, you can order the material, the educational material you can use in your small community. Doesn't matter if you are going to teach the human rights to 5 people or to 1,000 people. It doesn't matter. If every single person that is sensible, that they want to do something to improve their own community, the message is that they can do something. But you have to roll your sleeve, and do something. You cannot just go there and protest, that there are not human rights, that there are violations of human rights. That is fine. Obviously, you have to speak out your mind, but then you have to do something. Otherwise, remain just words, no action. As you said, Guru, several times, there are a lot of people that talk, but there is no action. So what could be, for example, for a minister, a Christian minister, or a Hindu or a Buddhist, they use their own temple, their own synagogue, their own church to teach the human rights to their own congregation. That could be, a start to do something. And for the fact that all these educational material are free of charge, anybody can do something. Anybody can do something. And if a single individual that is a island, a small island, but a lot of small island, one day we will have a continent of people educate about the human rights. And as I said at the very beginning, mankind possess a powerful weapon. And this powerful weapon is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And if anybody can start to teach to himself first, to know the human rights personally, and then start to teach the human rights to other people, we will have a better community, a better world where to live in. And as I'm representative of the Church of Scientology, we are sponsoring the Youth for Human Rights for this free material. And we are talking about more than 200 million people every year that are exposed to this material, to this education. There are churches, police department, government, whatever, They go online, they order the material, they receive the material, and they start the education in their own community. So I really please anybody that are listen these meetings on Facebook or here, just to really to roll your sleeve, and do something and teach the human rights to other people. Thank you.
Yeah, Jasbir Bhadiaji.
Good morning, namaskar, sat sri akal, everybody. Very, very educational, very inspiring wordings and messages here. There's I'm very impressed with the thought of peace education, because I have been emphasizing education in the platforms where I join. There's a major difference in the cultural backgrounds of the people, because there are certain cultures which historically have been very competitive, very overpowering, very obsessed with their religious denominations or religious labels, I call them, intolerance. They have been inbuilt in the cultures of those countries, nations, tribals. Their history of tribal wars and battles for no good reason, for very petty reasons. While there have been other cultures, mostly on the Eastern Hemisphere, where we always have tolerance of others, regardless of their philosophic outlooks, and peace. All the time we keep on talking about Om Shanti, Om Shanti. So this gets inbuilt into the attitude of the people. That's why Guru Nanak mentioned and emphasized oneness of humanity. Unless we start understanding that all humanity is one, and that concepts of superiority, inferiority, low caste, high caste, or whatever categorization of humans, unless that is taken away from our minds, we cannot see the value of helping others. As Guruji, you said, help others, serving others. Somebody has said, if we are supposed to serve others, then what are others supposed to do? No, it's a joke, all right. But there's a point here. Serving others is an attitude of accommodating the other person in your thought process, that you consider the other person as valuable and as good a human being as you are, because the underlying current in that serving other is the love. And if you have hatred or other elements built in you, then serving others will not also serve the purpose, because it has to ultimately go into your attitude. So that's why I love this word, peace education, my friend. It's a very broad subject. It's a total cultural change. It's a cultural revolution of treating people, other people as yourself. You know, treat the other person as you like to treat yourself. Unless we see that, we cannot build an everlasting peace. We have to start as a peace process. Building peace is a process, and a mere education is not enough. Education is potential power, as they say, knowledge is power. No, knowledge is potential power. Unless we apply that power into our lives, apply our knowledge into our life, we can get nowhere. So knowledge of human rights is fine. Volumes have been written on this question of human rights. Unless people know and apply them and believe in them. A policeman beats up a protester who's unarmed, who's peaceful. He has a right to express his opinion. Yet the police officer, the people come, they order, they beat people, they are lathi charge, or whatever they do. They are violating the human rights. They even know the human rights. They know the law. They are the people, so-called law enforcement people. Yeah, they themselves are the ones who violate the law. So knowledge of human rights is not enough unless you believe in them and apply them in every phase of your life. And at the fundamental thing is that love, and consider humanity as one human species, one human race, like a great family. Then the idea of serving others comes in. And then once we start believing in serving others, even you serve one person, doesn't matter, but you have the attitude of serving others. That brings a total change in your thinking. That's how we can have a better society, more peaceful society in this world. Thank you very much.
Vadiyaji, that was wonderful remarks. Dr. Remy Alapo.
Good morning, namaste, everyone. So sorry for joining you a little bit late this morning. I wanted to make sure that I participated in the discussion on human rights. So I only got here just as Pete Peacelight was about ending his presentation on Claudette Colvin, which was amazing. First, I commend you for your work on peace education. And we've had many discussions about my previous involvement on, peace education in, armed countries, a few years ago. But one thing I would like to also touch on is that the Youth for Human Rights package or project, I've also actually received that, the human rights, I downloaded it. And then there was a few times that I was at your center in Harlem and I was able to pick up some materials, and they're very useful. They're so, they're well detailed, highly detailed information that, as a matter of fact, in the fall of 2019, I did recommend it to my students at York College, because we had a project on human rights, and the course was Africa and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, and looking at the human rights aspect of, the slave trade and what continues in the diaspora today, in the lives of people of African descent. So we actually, you know, one of the recommendation was that to register for the Youth for Human Rights program and complete a couple of the courses, you know, to be able to earn a certificate from the International Human Rights Commission. And many students actually did participate in that. So I will be reaching out to you, Reverend Massimo, because as many of you know, you know, I'm advisor at the International Human Rights Commission, and especially for education and training. You know, the Youth for Human Rights program is what I've actually recommended to be used in addition to developing other content. So for those who don't know, you know, I'm promoting Youth for Human Rights because I also have benefited in the content, you know, the program, the activities, and there's no other way to respect the Charter of the United Nations than by, you know, keeping human rights in mind in everything that we are doing, you know, the way we think about others, even about ourselves. A few moments ago, our brother was laughing and I said, you know, to myself, I said, that is his human right, you know, the right to be happy, you know, the right to be free, the right to laugh, because in many countries, in many societies, you know, people, you know, they cannot express themselves. They are confined. You know, they cannot speak. You know, people cannot do as they please. But here we are, you know, we have the opportunity and the ability to actually, you know, be free. It may be limited to, you know, in some aspect or in some way, but at least when we keep human rights, you know, the Charter of the UN, you know, Declaration on Human Rights, keep all those in mind as part of our learning for human rights. And, you know, the Youth for Human Rights content, very, very detailed, lots of information. I highly recommend it. And, you know, let's continue to fight and work on human rights in our various communities and teach other people what human rights are, because there's a misconception that, you know, people don't understand what human rights are. You know, there's people, sometimes some people think, okay, you know, I'm in a country, you know, I'm free, that's human rights. Yes, it is, but there are other aspects of human rights that many people don't understand or don't know. So let us use the opportunity that we're faith or religious leaders to educate others in our communities about even the most basic human rights that a person should have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Remy, for your valuable comments. And this is the thing I always think. We all have birthrights. And we say human rights only for human beings. What about the animals and plants? They all have rights. They all have life. You know. So as a universal being, we supposed to live in a universal spirituality rather than in a religion or a culture. That's where we have to develop. Okay, we come from one town. We have love towards our family, our town, our country. You know, those are fine. But we have to travel beyond that. That's the way interfaith movements are. You know. Here I like to invite one of our friend, Reverend Keith Lowenstein. I supposed to contact him. Actually, I didn't able to contact anyone last few weeks. I apologize for that. I want to hear from Reverend Keith. The floor is for it. Remy, please keep your video on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hello, hello. Very nice to meet everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your speaking. I'm only here a few minutes because I have to start to work in a few minutes, but it's an honor to be here. And you know, just a comment about human rights. You know, the comment was made that people have to understand what human rights are, but they have to believe them. But it's really the love that's missing. It's the trauma of, so we have a birthright to be, born and taken care of and connect with other humans. And when that is disrupted, it is so difficult to get beyond that. And it takes someone else in that person's life to bring love to them so that they have a heartfelt connection to other humans. And it is that just automatically brings the respect for human life. There's just human rights. There's just it grows inside. So that is our challenge: is how to support all the children, even in very difficult situations. And when there are difficult situations, how are they taken in and treated well, and given the permission to love others? So so that would be my contribution to today's discussion. So
thank you, Reverend Keith. That is wonderful remarks. We have only 5 more days to finish this month-long program. That went very fast. When I mentioned to some of my friends, 28 days, that's too much. I said, no, I want to see how it will go. And I never had a plan what to do. I just started. It's going as a flow. Now we have tomorrow, 24th, tomorrow, and 25th we have open interfaith prayers and discussions. And Saturday we have speakers from African American community. And 27th again open forum for interfaith prayer service. And 28th is the closing ceremony. Ambassador Anwarul Chowdhury, he was a former ambassador from Bangladesh, and he was the Under Secretary General at the UN. He's going to be the chief guest, and we have assemblyman going to speak. Around 15 speakers we have on Monday.
Wow.
Music, dance, everything. 3-hour program. Yeah, and over 1,000 people are watching online every day. I didn't expect any of this stuff. So I see people are coming together. They are looking to educate themselves. They are ready to work together. That's the thing I'm feeling from people. That's great. So at least we had a wonderful video presentation today. I'm so happy about it. We have to do more work for the human rights. Human rights are not simple to implement. So much to go. Educating people, it will take so much time. I remember when I worked at the total literacy campaign in my state. My district was the first city made the total literacy campaign in the world. It took 3 years for me to work with the group to make everybody know how to read and write. So I go to each house in my village and ask, we make a write-up, how many people are working in the house, how many people are there, survey, and we'll find out how many people go to school. A lot of them never went to school. So we had to bring them to different places and teach them how to read and write every day, 4 or 5 hours, free. We are not charging anybody. After 3 years, they know how to write and read. You see the beauty of their face. They're so happy they can read a newspaper. And we became 100% literate city, and government of Kerala state took that project as a state project. Within 5 years, we got the state 100% literacy, #1 state in the world. Even I didn't think, this will be a big major thing in the world. That's the history. I was in my degree college. I was part of it. So when we educate people, they can understand things and they can teach next generation.
Yeah.
If they don't have education, they're stuck. Not only going to school and college, reading and writing. So much to learn about different things around us, including spirituality. We cannot exclude spirituality in any institution. That's a big mistake I saw at the UN. They try to exclude spirituality. But people like us will go there, implement in our own way. So we go with them. It's a diplomatic area, but we have to bring all spiritual people to religious people to. All has to work together to make the change. I saw Massimo want to say something.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to tell to Remy that I put in the chat my email address and my phone number, so you can reach me any moment. And I wanted to, again, one more time, to repeat this message, because many people said the same thing. And we should enter in action. So I would like to encourage anybody that are listening this meeting this morning to reach out people in the official education, field, politician, assemblyman, congressman, stuff like that, someone that can start to promote, to insert the human rights teaching in the curriculum of schools, because that will be very simple, So, you have to think in terms of a order of magnitude, how to do something that affect deeply the in fast time, very short time, can affect a large amount of millions of people. Children are going to schools. In the past, I remember in Italy, when I was in Italy, there was a matter that called civics. They teach, something about the Constitution and stuff like that. Was good, was not, big education, but was something, to educate the children about how the government works, and stuff like that. So how could be very simple to bring every single school to insert in their curriculum, to teach the human rights, even from, I don't know, the last year of kindergarten. So now I really encourage anybody that are listening this meeting this morning to think about if they know someone in the government, assemblyman, and just tell them what about to make a proposal to Board of Education, to people that can do stuff like that, and really introduce the human rights as a curriculum in schools. You can imagine, we can have millions of people in the next 6 months that learn what the human rights are. And for my knowledge and for my experience, I can tell you that the turmoil, that exists in our society today, can really cool down just because the people will be much, much more educated and will be much, much more tolerant towards their fellow people, and be more respectful, just because now they know, oh my goodness, I have right only if other people have rights. You cannot have only by yourself, other people have that right. So there is an incredible change of mind, to create this frame of mind that the other human being that is by you has the same rights like you. And we have to teach in school. And I really pray anybody that knows anybody in the government, school board, that have the power to have the power to insert or to use the human rights and teach in school to do something, please.
Thank you, Massimo. I see Gabriel is here. Hey, Gabriel. It disappeared. Is your video working, Gabriel?
Yes, it is. Hello, everyone.
Hallelujah.
Wonderful dialogue. So, yes, it's a beautiful meeting and movement towards the true peace, the true collective unity. So, little by little, as I've heard Guruji say so many times, slow and steady wins the race. And thank you, God. Hallelujah. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you.
Hallelujah. So, Ramesh, let me see. How are you? I cannot. I cannot hear you. Something. Unmute yourself again. Yeah.
How are you?
Namaste, namaste.
Namaskar. I am Hyderabad, and good evening, and namaskar to all. Here, Hyderabad, it is good evening.
You are in Indian Hyderabad.
Yes, Indian. Frequently, I am attending this interfaith. I feel very inspired. I see here great personalities and their words. It is useful for our young generation. This message here, conversations and beautiful words. We are always take inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So see you in Hyderabad very soon. Okay.
Welcome, Guruji.
Thank you, thank you. Massimo, anything else to say?
I said everything. I can repeat the same message and encouragement because I learned in my long time. I left I left the hands on. I don't know how. Oh, okay. Now I take out.
I'll show a temple celebration. That is in popular temple in like 80 kilometers far from my hometown, because I used to bike through like 3 days continuous. I used to bike. Okay, I'm going to show that one. See.
Beautiful.
This is only a temple celebration. So we have different types of celebration. So I thought just show what is going on in India. A lot of time people think India is a very poor country and children just running nose, sitting like this. India was the wealthiest country in the world in the 12th century. Other countries came and looted everything, made us poor. We are a victim of wars. Still, we go through different problems and coming up. So same like African countries, some of the European countries, South American countries, they all went through difficult times. War can create a difficult life for entire human culture. So ignorant people will continue this one. For us, we face the problems, we never give up. Always have a faith to make the change. This is where we are. So we may wind up today and make sure upcoming 5 days we have to have everyone every day to celebrate this last part of the festival. And I'm happy that our assemblyman who inaugurated this event is more into education and health. Is a very open-minded assemblyman. We are going to have an interfaith celebration at his office tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Before that, 1 p.m. we have an interfaith celebration with a church center for the United Nations and the Committee of Religious NGOs at the UN, which I am a secretary. We have a combined program, online and offline both. I'm going to post the flyer and the information very soon. And see, and Remy is going to moderate our Black History Month event. Still, I want to say, I don't want to say Black History Month, African American History Month. And I think we have 7 or 8 speakers, right, Remy? Then we'll have a celebration. Let us see. So if you can invite your friends, family, bring it. Especially last day, 3-hour program. That will be really rocking event. I hope our internet will be strong enough to air it. So see you everyone tomorrow.